Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you guys hear me? So today we're gonna be doing a pair programming session. So it would be great if you guys wanted to participate and like turn on your cameras and your microphones so we can all collaborate together. So yeah. We can get started in a couple of minutes. But if you guys are okay with like having your video in the live stream as well, then I can add you guys. So if that's something that you're comfortable with doing, then please let me know in the chat box. Awesome. All right. Okay, so I wonder if I can add multiple people at once. So I'm going to try that. Yeah, but today we're going to be doing the pair programming for part 1 of our homework. That's going to be based on the module content that we covered on Tuesday. So I'm going to see if I can, oh, okay. Oh, nice. And, okay. All right. So I think we can get started for today. Yeah, so if you recall from the other day, we went over the introduction to Python, and we covered topics like what is data science and what is programming. And then we also covered some of the introduction to Python content, which was about numbers and variables, some stuff about strings, booleans, comparison operators, if-else statements, and lists. So today we're just going to be going over some practice questions based on the topics that we went over the other day. And we're going to be working in Google Colab. So what this is it's a on cloud IDE where we can write code and run code. So it's very useful for beginners because you don't need to download anything at all onto your own system, but you can just use everything from the web. And this is a homework layout. So usually we would have students complete all the questions and then submit it so that it can be graded. So this is what this section is for. But today we're not going to actually submit stuff for grading. So we're just going to go on to the first question, which says, given the string McDonald, use a combination of indexing, slicing, concatenation, and string methods to create a new string McDonald. And notice it has the capital M and capital D here, and store it in answer 1. So here we're provided with an original string that's McDonald with all lowercase letters. Do any of you guys have any ideas on what we could do first? And you can unmute yourself and speak up if you have an idea.
I think we need to grab the M and the D somehow, and we can do that through, I forget what we're calling it, but the M is at the 0 position. Is that an index?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the...
You're exactly right.
So that would put the D at the 2 position?
The letter D.
Oh, I see. I was thinking MCD. MAC. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. We're going to be using indexing to pull out specific letters that we want to work with. So do you guys want to set up a variable? Let's say like answer 1 here. So how do you want to access the first letter M?
Would that be my string brackets 0?
Yes, exactly. So what that does is it's using indexing to pull out the first character at index 0. And that should be letter M. So with that, we've been able to pull out specifically the letter M to manipulate. So what we want to do is capitalize it so that it becomes capital M. So do you guys remember what we can do to get a letter to be capitalized?
I vaguely remember there was a capitalize command.
There was, yeah. Does anyone else have any ideas of what it might be? It's okay if you don't. We can quickly go through the notes. So here was some stuff about strings. Here was the slicing and step sizes. Maybe something here.
Is it my string upper, and then you put in the McDonald?
Yeah, so we're going to be using the upper method here. The way that these methods are used is in this format where you have the variable name first, and then the dot notation, and then the method name. So here, our variable name is myString, so that's why we use myString.upper. And what that does is it capitalizes every letter inside of the variable, right? So in this case, we only want to capitalize just that one letter M, right? So what do you think we could do here? So it's, yeah, wait. Okay.
Well, would answer one dot upper work?
Yeah, for sure. We could do that. So what that would do is it capitalizes everything that's inside of answer one, which is just the letter M, or that's what it should be. So we might want to check to make sure we're going along the right path by quickly printing out what we have so far. All right, so as you can see here, once I've run the little code block by clicking the play button here, it's going to run all the code that we have. And so when I print out answer one.upper, it gives us the capitalized version of the letter M. So we're going on the right track. So now that we've capitalized M, the next thing we want to do is get the rest of this string. So what do you guys think we could do to get that?
Yes, we need another variable.
Yeah, sure. So what do you want to name the variable?
Answer two.
Yeah, that works. So what we want to do is probably split this into multiple steps. So we got the first letter M and capitalized it. So the next thing we want to do is get the A and the C sections. And here's kind of a hint. It says use indexing, slicing, concatenation, and string methods. So probably one of those.
Yeah, I think that would be, we'd say what, 1, 2? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to be using slicing to get into to get chunks of the string instead of just the individual characters. So do you remember what the syntax for that was?
Was that like using the colon?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start with the variable name, which is my string, and then use the colon inside of the square brackets, where the number in front of the colon represents the index that we want to start at, and then the number after the colon represents the one we want to stop right before. So what do you think we should put as the numbers here? We're trying to get letters A and C.
Would be 1 and 3.
I think so, yeah. Let's check that out. So we could do print answer 2 to see what we have for that. And that looks right. It's giving us A and C, which means it's been able to slice the string correctly to get the letters that we want. All right. So the next thing we want to do is grab the letter D and capitalize it. So do you guys have an idea of what we could do here?
Would it be another answer one upper command?
Yep, yeah, you're right. We're going to do something really similar to what we did for answer 1. Do you want to store this as another variable? Yeah, we're going to store it as answer 3. And it's going to be really similar to what we did here with one main difference. Do you guys know what that is?
It's going to be my string position 3.
Yes, you're right. It's going to be my string. but we're going to grab the letter at index 3. And then we can go ahead and call upper for this to capitalize the letter. So we can try to print that out really quickly. And as you can see, it's giving us the letter D with capital letter. So that's what we want. And the next thing that we want to do is grab the rest of the string. And we don't need to do any uppercase or lowercase stuff on them. So let's create a new variable. And does anyone know what we can do for this?
My string, like 4:10. How many?
Yep, you're right. So we're going to use indexing again. And this time we're going to start at index position 4 because we want to grab the letter O and on. So that's starting at index position 4. And you said 10.
Is it 8? Is it 8?
We could try 8.
Was there something where we could leave it blank and it would just go to the end?
Yep, that's right. We could leave it blank and that takes until the end, or we could also like pick exactly the index that we want. As in like picking the last index number that we have, but we could also just leave it blank and that by default will take everything up until the end. So we can go ahead and try to do that. And it prints out the last few letters of the string. So nice, we got that working. Here we should have done that instead because otherwise it wouldn't have actually edited the variable. But now we have all of the segments of the string that we want. So what should we do to kind of put it all together as a single string?
Can we add the variables together with the print command?
Yes, exactly. We can add them together, and that's called concatenation, which is like combining strings together. So we can do that here. Answer 1 plus answer 2 plus answer 3 plus answer 4. So if you do that, it's going to combine all of the strings together, and it shows that we have the correct string that we were looking for, which is awesome. So that's basically the answer to this problem. Something else is that it says to store in answer 1, which is the original variable. So we could also just go ahead and redefine this variable and then store it into the variable answer 1 so that you could like be more accurate in what the question is asking. But at this part, it's like we've already gotten the correct answer. So that's awesome. If this was a homework assignment that we were trying to turn in, we would then like uncomment that one line and then press the run button again just so that it loads into the file. But it's not something that we need to turn in, so we're just going to move on to the next question, which says, create a simple program that calculates a person's bus fare depending on their age. Here's the fee structure, and it says age 5 and under ride free, ages 6 to 18 pay 1.75, seniors 60 and over pay 150, and everyone else pays 225. So this probably looks like something where we have to check multiple conditions. Do you guys remember Anything that we went over on Tuesday that might help us to solve this problem?
The if-else statement section.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna probably want to use the if-else structure. And let's kind of review this. So it looks something like this, where we have an if condition and the code that will be run if that condition is met. And then we can have an else case that's run in the case that the if case is false. And we also have something like elif in case that we have multiple conditions that we want to check through. So let's start with the first condition. Do you guys know how we would write code for that one?
Maybe start with an if.
Mm-hmm. It's a good start. So what would the condition be for, or how would we write out the condition age 5 and under?
Sorry, I wasn't able to make it to the Tuesday one, but I'm slowly catching up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Trying. But yeah, if you're trying to do condition if 5 and under, would you do the good old fashioned like less than sign?
Yeah, for sure. You would definitely use the less than sign. So we probably want to compare the variable age that we have with the value 5, right? So we're going to do if age less than 5. Okay. And we could probably have an additional variable called like fare, or like the price of the ticket, and set that to be 0 at the beginning. So in this case, if age is less than 5, what is the code that we should put inside?
Fare equals 0.
Yep, exactly. I think so. Because that says for age 5 and under, we should let them ride free, which means the fare that they pay is 0. All right. So we can move on to the next condition, which says ages 6 to 18 pay $175. So what do you guys think we should do for the next part? So we can go back here. We could probably do an elif statement. All right. What do you guys think the condition should be here?
Would it be like a 6:18 to be between those?
Yeah, we would want to compare, or we'd want to make sure that the age lies between 6 and 18. So the colon notation is for when we're slicing strings, but when we're working with comparison operators, we would want to use like the less than or greater than signs. So that's more of the stuff for numbers and Booleans. So how do you think we could write that here?
So if age is greater than or equal to 6, or is it and? What?
So we would probably want to use and
Sure.
because we want
Okay,
to make
and.
sure that the age lies right in between.
Okay. Yeah, and then less than or equal to 18.
Mhm. Yep,
Fair.
that's-
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly right. So we want our LF condition to be if age is more or equal to 6 and age is less or equal to 18, so that we could make sure that it fits within the range that we're looking for.
And sorry, maybe I missed the part. Why are there colons after the 5 and the 18, but not the other numbers?
Oh, yeah. So for our if-else like syntax, we always finish up the condition line with a colon. And that just means that this is the condition that we're looking for, and that everything else that falls below and is indented is code that is going to be run if this condition is met. So that's just like how we do syntax for if-else. That's a good question. Yeah, and a note here is that we want to make sure that we're using and instead of or, because for and, it would make us make sure that both conditions are met in order to run any of the code underneath. But if we were using or, then it would only check one of the conditions. And as long as one of them is true, then it still runs. So that would probably come up as an issue if we had like the number 30 or something, and it would check that like, oh yeah, 30 is more than 6, so this must be true, right? But it wouldn't go on to check the second one, which says that the age has to be less than 18. So that would be why we're using and instead of or. All right, so we can move on to the next case. Do you guys know how we can write that?
Greater than 60 and then fair 150.
Yep, exactly. We're going to say LF age is more or equal to 60, then fair is equal to 1.5. All right, so now we're at the last condition, which says everyone else pays $2.25. So how could we do that here?
Can we do just a LF statement with nothing?
Yeah, so we would use the else statement. Oops. The else is the one that goes at the very end as kind of a catch-all. So that's probably what we want to use here. So we could say else, and then fair is equal to 2.25. All right, so I think that looks like we have everything that we need. We can try to run the code. So let's say, given that our age is 21, what do you guys think the fair will output as?
$2.25
Yeah, why do you think so?
because we're in the everyone else category.
Yeah, you're right. So let's try to run that. And you're right, it's 2.25. So what happened is that we're given age as 21. So for an if-else structure, we would have to check all of the earlier conditions and slowly like cascade down the levels. So it first checks if age is less than 5, and since it's 21, it's not. So that makes this false, and it doesn't run this block of code. And then next, it would check if age is more or equal to 6, or no, if age is more or equal to 6 and less or equal to 18, which is also false, so it skips over. And then it checks if the age is more or equal to 60, and that's also false. So it gets to the last case, which says it's going to catch everything. So that's why fair is to 25.
So why do you have the fare at the top as 0?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had this here kind of like as a way to initialize the variable, but you don't really need it in this case because it's still going to run fine without it. But just having the variables initialized at the beginning of your code is good practice in case you forget to set it up later on. It would be like an issue in other cases, but here it's totally fine. But that is a good question.
So you're saying it would work if we hadn't put that in the beginning? Like it would create the variable when it was first called?
Yes, it would. I believe it might be an issue if we do something like this. Or no? Okay, yeah, so it looks fine here. It could be an issue with initialization if we have like other situations where we have like places where a variable is initialized and used, and then another place where it's used, but it hasn't been initialized yet because it hadn't run through the initialization part. Yeah. Do you guys have any other questions about this? All right. So we can move on to the third question. And this is actually the last question that we're going to work on today because the rest of the homework is covered by content for the upcoming week, which is part 2 of module 1. Okay, so this question says, given the two lists, list 1 and list 2, we want to do the following. So we have like a bunch of tasks that we want to do for this. We're going to sort list 1, reverse list 2, pop off X from list 2, append list 2 to list 1, and they're saying we can have lists inside of lists, and then use multiple indexing to print out the Z in list 1. So here are the two lists that we're given. You guys know how we could do this first task, which says to sort list 1?
Oh, I think there's an actual sort command. Is that right?
There is. You're right. You're absolutely right. Do you remember the way that we would use it? Like the syntax for that? We can go back to the notes. So here's our section on lists. So we have list properties where we were able to do indexing and slicing with lists, and then list mutability, and then some basic list methods, and some more methods. So it's probably here. You're definitely right. We have a built-in method to sort lists, and it's also using the dot notation. So we have the variable name, dot, and then the method name and the parentheses. So we can probably do that. And just to check that we have actually been able to sort the list, we're going to print it out and run this. And as you can see here, originally we had the list with the contents C, D, E, B, A. And after we've run the sort method on it, it's now A, B, C, D, E. So it's all reordered in the way that we want. Nice. So we can go on to the next part now, which says to reverse list 2. Do you guys know how we could do something like that?
Oh, we can add reverse equals true when we sort that list.
Yes, you're right. We can use the function for sort and use reverse equals true as the parameter. So we're going to, it says to reverse for list 2. So we're going to do that. And we're going to use the sort function here. We're going to say list2 dot sort and say reverse equals true. So let's try to print that out. All right. So here it's printed out 2 lines because we had 2 print statements here. So the newest one that we had is for list 2, where originally it was Z, Y, X, W, V. And then now that we've sorted it with reverse equals true, it's going to return this. So I think what they were trying to ask is to reverse what we actually have here. But
Okay.
for...
That's confusing. I'm not.
Okay, yeah. So what this would do is originally sort everything to be in ascending or alphabetical order, and then flip it again. So that doesn't reverse the list that we have currently. It would just like, does that make sense? Like it would sort everything alphabetically and then flip it. So we actually have a built-in function called reverse that we can use for this. So why don't we try that? All right, so now it looks like everything has been reversed from our list 2 list that we had. Nice. So we can move on to the third task, which says pop off the X from list 2. Do you guys have any ideas on what we could do in this case? So we can probably look back at our methods that we had. We have the sort and reverse, which we looked at earlier. We have append, which adds a string to the end of the list, and then pop, which removes an item from the list. What do you guys think?
Pop.
Yeah, I think so too. So here in this example that we had yesterday or the day before, we popped at index 0, which would remove the first item from our list. So in this case, it says we want to pop the letter X from list 2. And this is what list 2 looks like. So what code do you think we could write to pop off the letter X from that list? So, yep.
Oh, I was going to. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead. I think you're muted.
Oh, I forget what our list is called. Sorry. So we'd be doing list 2 dot pop, and then what, the letter 2 in there?
Yep. So we can try that out. So here we have list 2, and we're calling the pop method on it. And we're specifying index 2, which should get the letter X, because since Python has 0-based indexing, it's going to start 0, 1, 2. So that should be the letter X. So we can try to run that. And this shows what our list 2 looks like now, which has V, W, Y, and Z without the X. So that means we did a good job. We were able to pop the letter X off of list 2. So that's awesome. And now we can move on to the next item, which says append list 2 to list 1. And it's going to be a list inside of a list. So what do you guys think we could do for this problem? So here are some of the methods that we have. So we've used pop. Do you guys think we could use append for this? All right. I think so too. So the syntax for this would be similar, where we have the variable name, dot, and then the method name, which is append. And inside of the parentheses, we're going to have the item that we want to append to the end of our list. So it says here that we want to append list 2 to list 1. So I think this means we want to have list 1 call the append method. And then inside of it, we're going to have list 2. And just to check what we have now, we can print out list 1. But we're expecting it to be the contents of list 1 and then the contents of list 2 nested inside of list 1. So if we print that out, we can see that what we have here is the entirety of our new list 1, which had all the original content from list 1 that we had sorted earlier as well. And then all of the new content from list 2, which is nested inside of list 1 as its own list. So we've got like 2 levels of lists here. All right, so now we can move on to the last part, which says use multiple indexing to print out the Z in list 1. So we're referring to the new version of list 1 that we have. Do you guys have any thoughts on how we could go about this problem?
Sorry, I have a question about what we just did.
Yeah, for sure.
Why did we use append instead of the nesting thing?
By nesting thing, do you mean the indexing?
No, like we went over a different method called nesting the other day, where it was like with commas.
Yes, you're totally right. We did go over nested lists the other day, which is this section, right? And what that did was it created an outer list with lists inside of it. So we could probably try to see.
Oh,
if
I
that
see.
would
Oh,
work
it's
as well.
lists, whereas we were working with strings. Okay, my bad.
No, you're totally good, because this is also a list, but we're trying to append an item to the end of that list. If you want, we could probably try out what you were thinking of, which I think is something like say if we made a new wrapper list and then had, like, do you mean something like that, where we're separating them by commas?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we could try this out. So what this does is it makes a new variable that is a list because we're using square brackets. And the items inside of this list are the lists of list 1 and list 2. So that's the newest thing that we have down here. Yeah, that's the newest thing that we have down here. So if you can see, we have the entirety of list 1, comma, list 2. So I think like for append, what it means is that we're adding an entity to the end of the current list that we have. But what this would do is create a new list entirely and have it be 2 items separately instead of having the second list be a part of the first list. Does that make sense? All right, that was a really good question though. Yeah, so for this, does anyone else have any other questions about any of the previous parts?
Oh, I was just wondering, do we have access to the slides? I was looking through the folder, I didn't quite see those in there.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if you have access to the slides, but I will make sure that you guys do, so you guys can review it later on if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions about this?
Were we going to print still? We were going to use the multiple indexing. That's what.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so we're going to use multiple indexing to print out the letter Z inside of list 1. And list 1 is this guy. So how do you think we could try to work out this problem to get the letter Z?
So would the second list be located at that spot within, so maybe spot 5 within the first list?
Yep, yeah, exactly. So you're saying that the inner list is at position 5 of the outer list, right? So we can try to access that list in its entirety first, so that we can then narrow it down to the letters inside. So why don't we do that by printing out list 1 at position 5 and then seeing what that gets. All right, so that's the latest thing that we've printed out, and that should be the last item that we have here. And it did get the inside list, which is what we were looking for. So now we have this whole list that has V, W, Y, and Z, and we want to specify letter Z on its own. So what do you think we could do now?
I think the double indexing was just adding more brackets, right? Just right next to it without anything in between.
Yep, you're right.
Okay.
So we're going to add another pair of square brackets here. And what number do you think we should put on the inside?
Three.
I think so too. So let's put number 3 in there. So what this has now is list 1 at 5, which returned the entire list of like the list 2 contents. And then now we're going to specify even further that we want the index at, or we want the element at index position 3. So let's print that out. And the last thing that we have here is the letter Z, which means that, yay, we were able to get letter Z from the nested list 1 object. So yeah, good job, you guys. We finished all of the exercises that we wanted to do today. Yay! All right. That's all of the homework questions that we have. Do you guys have any other questions about anything that we covered this week? Any questions?
Is there any, do you know of any like places we can maybe practice this stuff just to sort of drill it in?
Yeah, like practice more exercises. I do know of like a couple of websites that you guys could try out if you're interested. There's one called Codeacademy. Have you guys heard of it?
Perhaps.
Yeah, so it's got like a bunch of languages that you could try out, which includes Python, and they have little exercises of practicing coding, and it's super fun and entertaining. So that's one that I would recommend. I think, have you heard of Khan Academy? I don't know if they have Python as well. They probably do. They've got coding stuff here. So you can probably check that out as well. Other than that, I know we're going to try to send you guys this PowerPoint through Slack if you guys want to read through this as well. And we could probably send you guys the homework, this Collab notebook, if you guys want. Yeah, I could look around for more resources if that's something that you guys could be interested in. But yeah, do you have any other questions?
I have a quick one just about the Python thing itself. When you're doing your like lines of code and you want to like single out like a letter from one of the words, you would input the number that corresponds to its position in the sequence.
Yes. So you're referring to question 1?
Yeah. At first, I was thinking because it was like 1 in 3. I was like, oh, is it like the number of the letter in the alphabet? But no, it's the actual like how it corresponds in the line of letters.
Yes, you're right. So when we're trying to pull individual characters from strings, we would be referring to the index positions of the character within the string. So for example, here, if we have something like McDonald, if you can imagine, like each of these letters corresponds with a number. And since it's Python, we have zero-based indexing, which means we start at 0. So that's how we would reference each of the individual characters within the string. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's a good question. Do you guys have any other questions?
Sure. While we're on that one, what would happen if that was a string that was longer than 9? So what would, if we added on EST, what would T be?
Do you mean like that?
Yeah. No, if you add 3 more letters on, what's the last letter?
Oh, yeah. So let's say, for example, we have something like new string, and we want to assign this to McDonald, something like that, right?
Well, no, I'm more just saying with the zero-based indexing, what happens after 9? What's the next?
Oh, I see. It goes to 10. And then it just keeps going. Yeah, so we could try that out. Like, for example, if we have the string new string, and then we want to print out the index at 11, which should be letter T, right?
You know what? That makes a ton of sense. It just didn't, visually, it wasn't lining up for me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it just keeps going. The issue that would come up is if you try to access an index that doesn't exist. So here we have T as the last letter, so it would only go up to 11. So if you try to do something like 14, then that would come up as an error because it says the index is out of range. Yeah, that's a good question. Do you guys have any other questions? If not, that's totally fine as well. That that's all of the content I have for today. But if you guys have any other questions, you guys can contact Bit Project, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. But other than that, yeah, that's all of the stuff I have for today. So thank you guys for joining. And thanks for working through the questions today with me. You guys did a really good job, and I'm glad that you guys were able to apply a lot of the concepts that we learned on Tuesday. So that's really great to see. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good night, and thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
good night.
Thank you. Bye.